what is up, everybody? Jeremy here. And as always, I'm bringing you guys some awesome people that are doing really big things. And I got to tell you, I'm very excited for today's guest because he wrote 5 best-selling books, among which is one of my favorites, Profit First. Welcome to the Create Your Own Life show, Mike Michalowicz.
Jeremy, thank you so much for having me on your show.
Absolutely. And I was kind of telling you when we got started here, Mike, I have a weekly mastermind with Dennis Brown every Wednesday. You were on his show last April. And I keep hearing new awesome insight about your business. I'm really stoked to get into it with you today, man.
Yeah, and I'm excited to share. I hope some people can take elements of it or copy it in some way that serves them.
Well, the first thing that I found really intriguing, Mike, is you've built 4 multi-million-dollar businesses. You've sold one to a Fortune 500 company, written 5 best-selling books, and spoken on some of the biggest stages. But I guess what made you decide to be a writer? Because it's with all that business success, why write?
Yeah, well, because the one thing I leave off my resume is my business failure. And
We all do, right?
Yeah. Oops, I forgot to include that one. It was a calamity. So I did sell a couple companies, and after my second exit, I was a self-made millionaire in my early 30s. I thought my ego exploded. I thought I was Midas. Anything I touch turns to gold. I started a business as an angel investor, just investing, 50,000 here, 100,000 there, 25,000 here. I'm going to make all these little businesses wildly successful and become part of the mega rich. And I was mega stupid. All those businesses collapsed. Actually, it's funny. In retrospect, I don't call myself an angel investor. I call myself the angel of death. I just killed every business. And as a result, though, I wiped out all my finances. I lost everything, including my possession, my house, everything. And it caused me to restart. And I actually went through depression for a couple of years. But the power of that period of time, I reinvestigated what I thought I knew about entrepreneurship. I realized in retrospect, a lot of what I experienced was right time, right place, but not in my control. I didn't understand how profitability worked. I didn't understand these different elements. So I started to just document for myself what should I have done and researched it. And then it was clear I got to start writing about this as a book, as books, and then ultimately became a full-time author 12 or 13 years ago.
Wow. And the thing I find really cool about how you do this, and this is something I was talking to my publisher about too, because I'm currently working on a book.
Nice.
And he was saying that one of the things that you do is you actually build businesses around each book that you write, but you don't actually build them yourself, which I found very interesting. And I guess I'm curious, how did you come up with that concept? Because it is a really brilliant concept, right? You're kind of doing a launch and here's the new thing available. So I guess, what does that look like for you?
Yeah. So it's funny. Some people ask me, "Oh, you must have strategically planned this. Every book you write, you're kind of building all these businesses around it." And no, I wish I was smart enough to plan it. It presented itself. It happened. I wrote a book called The Pumpkin Plan. It was my second book, and some of the readers started calling me saying, "Hey, I like this book, or I love this book. I just don't know if I'm doing it right. I've read it, but I don't know if I'm doing it right. Who's the coach behind this?" I said, "Hey, do you do the coaching, Mike?" And I really don't aspire or want to coach, so I was like, "No, but I can introduce you to somebody." And I quick hung up the phone. I'm like, who do I know? And I called someone and said, "Do you want to teach this process?" They said, "Yeah, give me the book." Well, that started becoming a program. And we started this thing called Pumpkin Plan Strategists, people that specifically taught it. And then did it again for Profit First. Profit First, we have over 400, I think we're approaching 500 people that are certified to teach Profit First. They've gone through all the advanced training now behind the book. And it was by that point, it's like, oh, every book can have a program behind it. I do it instead of me. I don't want to run all these different companies. I want to be a visionary. I want to have a plan forward, but I don't want to be the one executing on it. So I started a licensing program. The last 2 or 3 companies now have been licensed where an established business is already serving. I'm coming out with a new marketing book. The company that acquired the rights for it already is a marketing company. They just wanted to leverage the book and the brand, the methodology to up-level themselves. It's another form of marketing for them, quite frankly, and the way to distinguish themselves. And they paid a licensing fee and share in the proceeds. And what's beautiful about these type of relationships is they want me to sell more books because it's a great way for them to gain exposure. And I want them to do more business. So I'm trying to grow their business. They're trying to make me sell more books. And we're both serving each other in the process.
I love that idea, and the question that brings up for me, because you mentioned that it happened with the Pumpkin Plan book, and then things kind of got a little bit I'm sure the process changed a bit since then, And do you have kind of the idea in mind when you write the book now, or is it something that comes to you after the process, or what does that look like?
Yeah. So with the pumpkin plan, it was after the fact.
Hmm.
Profit First, it was during the fact. So as I'm writing Profit First, I'm like, oh, there should be an organization. Every book since then, it's prior. So I negotiate a licensing deal before the book is even written.
Right.
This way, I can include the licensee in the book. Now, part of the process is, these licensees, it's a lifetime deal. Like once a book is written, it's written. It's hard to change a book, particularly through mainstream or traditional publishing. That's the route I'm in.
Sure.
So to rewrite a book is really difficult. You have to do a re-release and, it's hard. So I really had to vet out these relationships. What I found was interesting is during the research process of a book, and it can take me 5 or more years to write a book. As I'm doing this, I'm interviewing experts. Those experts, some of them may actually be the perfect licensee. So the interview process becomes a vetting process.
That's interesting.
And I've done enough of this now too. Like my most recent book, it's called Different is Better. Uh, and that's not coming out until September, so 2021. So it's a little ways out still. But that book, the person who licensed it, the company is called Think Digital. They already were aware that I do these licensing programs, and they said, "Hey, uh, we wanted to get involved with you because of the successes you have with your other licensees. Would you be interested in us considering that?" This was
Mhm.
even before the book title was determined. So it was kind of cool to have someone that early on, and then they started co-developing some of the concepts. So I think this business is really positioned well to complement the book. They don't have to learn my ideas. We collectively create some of the ideas for the book, and they're executing on it.
And I guess in terms of that, Mike, like something that I was thinking about, because you mentioned these are licensing deals too, which I think does change the structure a little bit. But I guess for you as somebody creating the idea, how much control do you still want on the vision of where it goes? Do you detach yourself completely, or do you kind of want to make sure that you're still controlling it because it is your idea?
Yeah, it's my idea, but also I'm a curator of ideas. So it's not like when I wrote Profit First, that was an accumulation of other ideas. It wasn't like I generated something out of thin air. I
Sure.
took ideas and plugged them in together. So there's other people. Profit First actually goes back to 300 BC. This is when the first envelope system was created, eons ago. Um, but with Different is Better, for example, some of the concepts was co-developed with this licensee. So I feel that when I create a book, that intellectual property or the core concept is still under my control. I maintain the brand positioning,
Hmm.
but the development of the services really becomes their own thing. With the business, I'm 5% involved. I become a spokesperson for it when they're doing a big launch for a new program. I'm the one who's the spokesperson. Said, hey, get this program, but they are developing the services and they're constantly enhancing it.
Hmm.
It also becomes a feedback loop. So with Different is Better, this new book, we're already in beta 2. So we already went through 2 full beta deployments and now are an early release of the services. Well, as they were doing this, they're giving me feedback. I'm still writing. There's stuff I enhanced and put in the book. So I don't want to be involved so much in the execution or service.
Sure.
That's not my gift or talent. I want to curate ideas and write great books about it. But I do want to be a spokesperson too. So 5% I'd say, maybe 10% involved, and they run the other 90%.
Well, the thing I find really interesting about this, and my audience will remember, I think it was a year ago, Guy Kawasaki was on the show, and we talked about the idea of being a brand evangelist, right? Which is what Guy really
Yeah, yeah.
talks about. And I think the thing that's interesting is you've kind of built a business around being a brand evangelist and creating the brand idea, which is, have you looked at it like that?
Yeah, for sure. Like, I know Guy. We've keynoted together before. He started with Apple, so he's a brand evangelist around Apple. I think how I'm positioned a little differently is I'm a brand evangelist, which kind of points back to me. Like
Sure.
I'm the author guy with a really hard to pronounce name, but nonetheless I'm the author guy. So every time I release a book, it's actually kind of fascinating. So my last book was called Fix This Next, and when that launched, all the other books got further exposure. It's called backlisting. Someone discovers a new book and they're like, oh, I like this. Let me see what else this guy's written. So all the businesses that support services also got a boost. So
Hmm.
as the books went up in sales, more people are aware of the concepts, the more people hired or engaged these different service companies. The interesting thing is because it revolves around my little universe of books here that I'm really kind of self-promoting. So I'm
Right.
not promoting Apple or some third company that if I left, they would continue on. It's about me, which also is a trap.
Mhm.
I realized like I got to keep on writing books. If I all of a sudden stop, then the whole kind of flywheel comes to a grinding stop. Or if I'm incapable or die or something, I can't, everything's over. So the other thing I started to do was to realize that once I have a brand, can I expand it beyond me? It's kind of like a For Dummies series.
Mhm.
So Profit First is a great example. There's all these derivative books. There's Profit First, what I wrote, but there's Profit First for gyms, which was written by this guy named John Briggs. Profit First for e-commerce providers, written by a woman named Cindy Thomason. And there's all these derivative authors. That has been a real uptick also because now they're out promoting their books that speaks to their niche, which brings more exposure back to the main core book, what I wrote, which brings more exposure to these licensees. So that's been another way to expand out, but also extract myself from being the linchpin.
I like that you mentioned as well, like when you write one book, you're promoting all the other ones you've done as well. Because when I think about it, I instantly started running through some of the books that I've loved and how I discovered them. I made the mistake of, and I say mistake just because the books are so long, of discovering David McCullough through his book John Adams, and then all his books are like 3,000 pages. But it's true though. You find an author, you start consuming everything by them, and it is a really great strategy every time you write a new book. So it's just not something I considered.
No, it's funny. I'm a uber fan of Malcolm Gladwell,
Mhm.
and
I did that with Malcolm's books too.
yeah, can't stop, right? And I know he's got a new book coming out called The Bomb Squad Mafia. I think is like I can't wait for it to release. I don't even know what the topic is really. I really don't care. The fact it's his book.
Mhm.
So I think there's for any author, there's a potential for that kind of community to exist.
Mhm.
It's called in the trade. It's called backlist.
Yeah.
A backlist is a book that's no longer being promoted as the prominent active book. It's all the ones behind it.
Mhm.
And if you can build a backlist that continues to sell, well, that becomes for the author a revenue stream, a perpetual royalty stream. When you couple it with coaching or service programs, now you're building a little bit of a domain that continues to ratchet up.
Mike, one of the things that I found really interesting, and you've mentioned this in several other interviews, that one of the things you've done is you've researched thousands of companies. Like research is a very big part of what you do, and I'm interested to find out, like, is there a particular or preferred method of research for you? Because I know for me, it's usually consuming a lot of audio, and I'm a big fan of primary sources too. Like I want to see exactly what somebody said. But for
Yeah.
you, what does your research method look like, if there is one?
Yeah. So, well, the beautiful thing is the people I write for are the people I research.
Hmm.
So my own readership is probably the best source. I like you too. I like to get my hands dirty. I wrote a lot about this baseball team called the Savannah Bananas in my books.
Oh, I
I
love Jesse. He's awesome.
Yeah, he's awesome. Yeah, he's amazing. Well, I for myself, I discovered them maybe 4 or 5 years ago when I was writing the first version of Profit First. And once I learned about him, I'm like, I'm heading down to Savannah and checking him out, and immerse myself behind the scenes for a few days, just learning that business, have a constant dialogue with him. Um, my own readers, I run surveys. It's funny, we just got a survey back just a few days ago from 600 different entrepreneurs on how they're navigating COVID and how it's affecting them. So it's really my readership. It's looking for macro trends in my community. I mean, like what's happening for the majority of folks,
Hmm.
and then selecting some to go in and investigate their stories. I think one thing I've discovered is it's powerful to be one of the first bringing out a new story. So Savannah Bananas 4 or 5 years ago still wasn't that popular. They're just on the brink of growing, and I learned about their story and I wrote about it. But if I wrote about Apple or something, everyone has a case study on Apple. Like
Right.
everyone does the Apple case study. It's no longer intriguing, compelling. So I'm always looking for that fresh new story in small business.
I guess then, other than Jesse and the Savannah Bananas, like what other thing did you discover in terms of a story that you're like, oh my gosh, this is just one of the most intriguing or interesting things I found?
Yeah, I think there's this thing called Iverson's Barbershop. It's out in California. I was just studying them. It's a little barbershop that got crushed by COVID. And
Mm.
so what the owner of that barbershop did was he doubled down on COVID cleanliness and I mean, just wearing ridiculous amounts, like basically a spaceship suit. Uh, and it became compelling for certain patrons who are super concerned about the COVID virus. So it started speaking to them cause the business to grow. There's another little story is a VA company. I can't actually remember the name of it, but virtual assistants. And they just did a little marketing trick with baseball hats. It simply said thinking cap. And they mailed it out and they said, here's your thinking cap. We have our thinking cap on too. Do you want to connect? It was this little marketing gimmick that resulted in like $50,000 of business. They just did something a little bit different than the market. So there's these little interesting businesses out there that I hear about constantly.
I guess then looking at the writing process, like every writer has a different way to do it. And I'm curious for you, like, is it time blocking? Like, how do you structure yourself to get a book done? Because like that
Yeah.
is the biggest feat of writing is actually getting the book done.
Yeah, right.
And when you actually, hit a writing block, like how do you handle that for yourself?
So I write daily, 6 a.m. every morning Eastern time. If anyone wants to join me, in in the ethos, I'll be there 6 a.m. every morning. From 6 to 7 o'clock, I write minimally, and that's in the off season. That's like when I'm not intentionally writing a book.
Mhm.
Once I have a commitment from my publisher and contract to write a book, then I'm doing about 4 hours to 5 hours a day. But a lot of writing is for the trash, quite frankly. I wrote something today, and I'm like, that'll probably never see the light of day. But I got the writing done. The writer's block to me is not. It's really around the concept. If I hit a block, I stop where I am and I start something new. For example, I have a list of things I want to investigate. I just heard, and I'm always collecting ideas. I use not Evernote, but OneNote. It's Microsoft's competing.
Yeah.
I had like hundreds or thousands of ideas. Like, look into this. I started this morning. I don't know if this is true, but that Nike's phrase "just do it" was came about when there was an execution happening for some guy, and his final line was "just do it,"
Oh
and
my
that became
gosh.
the inception for. And I'm like, really? Is that true? I don't know if it's true or not, but I'm going to investigate that. So the next time I'm writing and I'm drained or it's not working, I'll jump onto something brand new, and that will re-inspire me to get going again.
That's really, really intriguing because that makes me think of, I used to do this weird thing when I was younger where I would like go through the wormhole of Wikipedia articles. Like you read one and it throws you another
Oh,
article, another,
totally. Yeah.
and you write down some really interesting things which actually can help you in future writing. So I love that idea. I guess looking at it as well, Mike, like, you're working on a new book. I'd love to hear a little bit about, where that inspiration came from you. And I know it's going to
Yeah.
be a bit before we can get it, but I'd love to hear about, how that process is going for you.
Thank you. So the new book's called Different is Better, and it's a book on marketing. How it comes about is I will reach out to my readership, and first of all, I appreciate what a blessing that is. My first book, I had no readership. I had no one to reach out to.
Sure.
Oh, it is a privilege to be able to ask questions, and I honor that privilege. So I reached out to my readership and said, "Where's the biggest challenge you have right now?" And the consistent theme was standing out. I serve small businesses, and these small businesses get rolled over by the big company names. Um, Whatever marketing they try, they seem to keep hitting a ceiling. So it was like, how do you stand out, especially in marketing? So the new book, Different is Better, is a study of this. And what I found, and my goal of all my books is to boil it down to the most simple, most effective method. So profit first, take your profit first. That's the system. In Different is Better, I found that there's 3 elements that must happen in sequence for marketing to be effective. And if it doesn't happen, marketing burns out. It's it's an acronym, DAD, DAD, and it's real simple. First of all, the marketing must differentiate itself. That's the first D from all of the contemporaries. If it's not different, it goes unnoticed. It's invisible.
Mhm.
Once it's different, it then must be attractive. Meaning, I could dress like a clown. I'm an attorney. I could dress like a clown, come, waka waka into the courtroom. That's different. It's not attractive. That could repel people. So it's got to be congruent with what that prospect finds attractive. That will keep them engaged. Then it must be direct, meaning it must direct that customer to take a specific action as a result. You're going to see, we're recording this right before the Super Bowl, but when the Super Bowl happens, there's going to be these $5 or $10 million commercials run that are really different. They're really entertaining. And then it's like, what now? And it just kind of fades to oblivion. The direct is you need to move the customer toward the final goal, which is ultimately a sale or some kind of conversion.
Mhm.
So it's DAD, differentiate, attract, direct. And the simple mnemonic can be any marketing you look at, say, does dad approve? Kind of weird, but does dad approve? Does it, if it doesn't pass the DAD test, it's not approved. It's likely going to be very ineffective marketing. If it does pass that test, it likely will work in a sustainable way.
Well, does dad approve? I guess isn't as good as does Mikey like it, but it's
Yeah,
pretty good. It's pretty good. I appreciate the differentiation point though, because that is it's something I find myself talking about again and again and again. Like that's one of the biggest problems in podcasting right now is you have, hundreds of thousands of people trying to do the exact same show. And if
Right.
you're not figuring out how to differentiate yourself and how you're talking, like you're just going to blend in. That's just how it is.
Totally. And that's the problem with best practices, right? So I go to these industry conferences, not so much with COVID, but go to these conferences and people are talking like, what's the best practice? And they come up with the 4 or 5 best practices, which inherently means it's not the best practice anymore because everyone's doing the same 4 or 5 things. How do we break out of that? The best way to find something that's effective is don't go to your industry conference, go to something that's totally outside your industry, take their best practice and bring it back to your industry. It was funny, like I was actually just writing an article this morning, the one that may go into the trash, we'll see. But I remember I used to listen to a local radio station here, WDHA-FM. And they would say, hey, get your free bumper sticker, slap on your car. And our crew that's in our WDHA van, if they drive by and they see your bumper sticker, you can get the prize of the day. Oh, that's cool. This kind of spotted in the wild. How does that apply to my business? Is there some way I can get my readers to put a bumper sticker of different is better or maybe their email signature or something like that, and it can be spotted in the wild and recognize them. So take a good best practice from outside your industry, radio stations in my case, and try to bring it into your business.
I absolutely love that. And I know you're running a little low on time here, Mike. So I have 2 questions that I ask every guest that I want to ask you quick. And the first being, if you could take a look at Mike at 21 versus yourself now, what is something you believed at 21 that you don't believe now?
I didn't think you'd lose sleep if you drank a lot. I was like, oh, there's no consequence. Like you can booze hard. I would booze a little bit less. So that's one health element and that's kind of real. The other thing is in 21, I thought I knew a lot more than I did. And now I'm about to turn 50. I realize I know barely anything.
Mm-hmm.
So just the thirst for learning will serve me best. I wish I told myself and knew.
I love that. Well, looking at the idea of legacy, that's the reason why we do a lot of what we do is hopefully we're creating a better world for other people, after us. And I guess if you could be far in the future and tell us what that legacy looks like,
totally.
What are you leaving behind?
Check this out right there. It says eradicate entrepreneurial poverty. I look at that every day and I touch it to remind myself the importance of it, to have a physical, tactile experience with it. That's my life's purpose. And 30, 40 years down the road, I want entrepreneurs. I don't know if it's 1 million entrepreneurs or one entrepreneur that's been touched to the deepest part of their experience, but to say my business life is permanently improved because that guy, that's my mission, is to eradicate entrepreneurial poverty. I don't want entrepreneurs to struggle. By the way, there's 300 million small businesses globally that are struggling. And I hope to be of service to all of them. But I realize even if I can shift the life of one other entrepreneur, I'll be proud of that.
That is a huge purpose. Thank you so much for sharing that with me, Mike. This has been amazing. For people listening, if they want to connect with you, learn more, where's going to be the best place for them to go?
Don't go to MikeMichalowicz.com because no one can spell that. But that's my website. You can go, here's a shortcut, go to MikeMotorbike.com. It rhymes. It was my nickname, Jeremy, in high school, and I've never driven a motorcycle. But MikeMotorbike.com, it brings you to my website. And free resources, all my books, you can download free chapters. I used to write for the Wall Street Journal, free. And I also have my own podcast called Mike Up in Your Business, all available through MikeMotorbike.com.
Very cool. I can appreciate having a difficult to spell name. It's not as difficult as yours, but I was called Germany until I was about 14. So I was a country for a while, man. Mike, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today on the Create Your Own Life show.
Thanks, Jeremy.